10 seconds. Hello, everyone. Attorney Lee Marvin here. As you know, it is Monday at 8 o'clock. Monday at 8 o'clock is when we do the live show. I don't know what you call it, really. It's the live broadcast for answering questions, immigration questions. So I'm here for you. I'm not here for me. I'm here for you to answer your questions, hot topics, current topics, immigration related, government. I mean, you name it. We talk about it here. So questions and comments, anything you want to talk about is what we're here for. Okay. So I'm getting my bearings here. Okay. But I am here for you. Okay. I do have some questions that were asked earlier today that I said that I would talk about these topics on the live broadcast. Okay. So the first question that I was going to talk about was a very, very, very common question. Okay. So, and this applies to a lot of people, especially here in the area where we are. I'm a U.S. citizen. I'm 21 years old, and I have parents that are not here legally. Can I apply for my parents? Okay. Very common question. And the question is, it depends. It depends on a lot of things, but basically, if you are a U.S. citizen and you're over the age of 21, you legally can sponsor family members. Okay, so who can you sponsor as a U.S. citizen? Anyone that's an immediate relative, your parents, your siblings. You could do your spouse or your children. Okay, you can't do any abuelos, abuelas, any uncles, aunts. It's only those family members. So most of the people are asking me, Lee, Abogado Marvin, can I apply for my parents? Yes, you can. You can start the process to apply for your parents. The trick is, what do you have to do in order for your parents to have the interview? That's the real question. So two-part question. Can you apply for them? Yes. How are they able to move forward with their process? Well, a lot of it depends on how they enter. Everything depends on how your parents enter the country, okay? If you enter the country with a visa, chances are you're probably going to be fine. You'll be able to do an interview inside the United States. I say probably because the Biden administration has been really, really hard on people who have entered, even with a visa. They've been really hard on people, okay? And often they won't let people move forward with their interviews in the United States. I found that if parents have been here for years, generally they're going to be allowed to move forward with their process. Okay, so you get sponsored by your 21-year-old child and you're able to move forward with your interview in the United States if you entered with a visa. If you did not enter with a visa, then no. You can't move forward with your interview unless you do other things. And I try to promote this as much as I can to people because most people don't really know about it. And it's the parole in place. So military service. So I got a lot of clients who've decided to go into the military, and that decision actually provides a different benefit that can help their parents. Okay. So then all of a sudden you're in the military, you start the process to sponsor your parents, and they now through the military can do their interview inside the United States. They don't have to leave for their interview, which means they're not stuck for 10 years and they do not have to get a waiver. So that is a huge thing, right? So, but the key is you have a 21-year-old child that now can file papers for you, okay? So yes, you can apply for your parents after you turn 21, okay? A very similar question is just a slightly different, okay? I'm a U.S. citizen and I'm 18. Can I apply for anyone? The answer is yes. You cannot apply for your parents, your siblings, but you can apply for your spouse. So if you get married and you're under the age of 21, you can actually get a green card for your spouse at age 18. So there's a different nuance to this immigration policy craziness. But yes, you can do that. You can sponsor your spouse living overseas or living in the United States for a green card, okay? So very important to know these things because we all have relatives and we all have things that our lives are different, right? And we try to figure out the best way to move forward with our lives. This is one huge way for people to do it. If you are a US citizen, you can sponsor different family members. This isn't a new concept. Everyone watching this already knows this. But do you know about the 21-year-old and the parents? Do you know the 18-year-old and your spouse? Maybe you didn't know that, okay? So, okay, I'm reading a question here. If you excuse me, if you will. So a lot of these questions, why am I talking about this? Because people ask me these questions. So send your questions, man. If you're on one of our many different platforms, you're watching from one of these platforms, you got to send questions in, okay? Because again, like I said, I already know all this stuff. I'm not saying it for me, I'm saying it for you. So if you have questions, please let me know what those are, and I will answer them to the best of my ability. Last week when we did this, we had a ton of people at the very end of the half hour that finally started to ask questions. And I'm like, no, come on, because I love answering the questions, okay? So ask your questions. I'm here for you. So ask questions, okay? So another question I was asked earlier today, okay? Actually, it wasn't today, but I'm kind of lying to you to make it seem more thrilling. It was actually at the end of last week, okay? And this is very timely. With all the stuff going on at the border right now, this is a very timely question, okay? I entered with my wife last month. Can I apply for asylum? Okay. Okay, one second. I'm being told that I have all these questions. Here we go. I have multiple computers open right now, and this guy here. So let me answer the question before I get to my planned question. Okay, what happens if you have a pending I-751 with a pending N-400? Which one comes first for interview? Awesome question. So the I-751, so that's the removal of conditions process. So you have a green card, and this is, yeah, OB3 ICE, okay? You have a pending removal conditions process, which means you have a green card, you got married, and you have a green card, and you've been a legal permanent resident on a conditional status for 2 years. You apply for the 751 ish, the removal of conditions, in order to get your 10-year green card. The weird thing is when you're married to a US citizen, so after 2 years, you can remove your condition. After 3 years, you can apply for citizenship based on that marriage. So most of my clients are able to apply for citizenship before they even get their 751 approval, before they're a full 10-year green card holder. So usually you have the ability to move forward with that process, and most of my clients actually get their interview scheduled for citizenship before they're a 10-year green card holder. It seems weird, but it's just the way it works. Two different processes go in tandem, and usually you will get that interview for the naturalization before you get your 10-year green card, and that's totally legit. You can get approved, you can be a US citizen before you're a full 10-year resident. So that's a great question, and it happens pretty quickly when you do citizenship naturalization process. They're prioritizing a lot of these requests, so you will actually get that probably within 10 months to a year. So that is something that everybody should do if they're in that situation. So definitely do it. Okay, so that's that question. And that's our Instagram friends. I have another one. I'm a US citizen. I'm thinking about petitioning my grandmother. Well, unfortunately, you're not going to be able to do that because that is a relationship that is not permitted by immigration law. Once again, the relationships that are permitted for residency: parents, children, spouse, brother, and sister. You can't petition aunts and uncles, grandparents. You just can't do it. So unfortunately, you would not be able to do that. So you can't do that. So back to the question I was answering before. I entered the United States with my wife. Many of my clients have small children too. They cross the border. They come in here. Um, can they apply for asylum? The question always is, how did you enter? Did you enter through a designated port? Were you paroled? Did you do the CBP-1 app? It depends on a lot of these factors, okay? So if you entered, you were paroled in the United States for the purpose of requesting asylum. That's exactly what you need to do, because that is the purpose. But behind being paroled, if you go through a port of entry and you're paroled because you're telling the government of the United States, hey, I'm fleeing persecution back home. Can I enter the United States and file for asylum? So yes, absolutely, you're filing for asylum if you're legally in the country or not. It doesn't matter. As long as you're in the United States, that's what allows you to move forward with your asylum request, okay? So another question, a follow-up question, similar in the same vein, is the CBP-1 app. If you've seen some of my videos, I put videos on YouTube and Instagram about this. CBP-1 app is this so misunderstood process. Like most of what's going on with this current administration and really the last administration, it's a train wreck. Nobody knows what's going on. ICE doesn't know what's going on. The Justice Department doesn't know, which is the court, don't know what's going on. The Biden administration doesn't know what's going on. They're administrating things, or they're trying different things that nobody really knows how they truly work with one another. But I do know that people who enter with the CBP-1 app, okay, a lot of times you're able to immediately request or file for asylum. And oftentimes you're granted the right to apply for a work permit, okay? So if you're given that ability, and you'll know it when you enter, and the government provides you this information, you'll know whether you're permitted to do that or not. So if you are, apply for it. It's possible to enter with a CBP-1 app and have the right to request a work permit pretty quickly. Different from asylum, okay? Asylum, you have to wait for 6 months to be able to get the right to apply for a work permit. CBP-1 app, I've heard clients telling me, give me the evidence, showing me that they're allowed to apply right away. And I've applied for people right away. So you definitely can do that. Okay, I got another question for Senior Carlos. What happens if a person marries a citizen but has accumulated an illegal stay? Can she change status within the United States or outside? So Carlos, thank you for the question. What happens if a person marries a citizen? Okay, so unlawful entry is what it is. Unauthorized presence. If you've accumulated unauthorized presence, unlawful entry, then that definitely creates problems. Most of the time, it's a waiver. You go through the green card process, whether you're in the United States or outside the United States, there's a waiver for you, okay? So there's unlawful presence. You're sponsored by a U.S. citizen, your spouse, you file for the green card process, for example, outside the United States. So then what happens is you have the right to then request a waiver for that presence to be able to leave the country and do your interview and then re-enter the United States. I've done a lot of these. And it does work, okay? It's not just theory. It does work. People get approvals. They leave the country and they re-enter with their green card, and it works like magic. You got to do it the right way. But yes, Carlos, it is possible to do that even with unlawful presence. You can still fix that stuff, whether you're inside the United States for your interview or outside. How can you do it inside the United States? In many cases, well, if you enter with a visa, you can still accumulate unlawful presence. But if you enter with a visa, you're treated differently. So that's one way to do it. The other way is what I told before, which is the parole in place through the military. I have clients right now. Sponsor is a female in this case. She went into the military and she's sponsoring her husband, and she's doing the parole in place for him. It works as long as you do it the right way. As long as you have the right relationship, you can do that. So yes, you can absolutely do that. So I got another one on Instagram here. After filing the I-485, how long does it take to get the work permit? And how long does it take for the whole process? Excellent question. So if you have the right to file for the I-485, which is the adjustment of status inside the United States, usually, if things are done the right way, the right to do the work permit happens, you file at the same time, and usually that gets approved within, 4 months. It used to be longer, it used to be shorter, but roughly 4 months is how long it takes to get that work permit approval. Okay. As far as the interview, when is the interview going to be scheduled? Okay. So the whole process, it takes about a year, is what I'm telling my clients. It takes about a year from when you start until you get the interview scheduled. Okay. So it might be different depending on what state you're in, because certain jurisdictions are taking longer to schedule interviews. Because remember, you have USCIS, which is the first part of the process, and then you got the interviews at the local field office. Both of those are 2 different timetables sometimes. So it really depends, but I say most of my clients are getting interviews within a year. Okay. Okay, that was that question on Instagram. Carlos, you're welcome. El gusto es mío. Okay. So yeah, a lot of it depends on where you are. Here in Michigan, the Detroit field office generally is pretty swift. So if you get the I-130 approved and you're trucking along for your interview, I've had clients definitely within a year. California, forget about it. It is ridiculous how long stuff is going. And I will say that there's all these processing times. Everybody's wondering about processing times and wait times and all that. They change week by week by week. It's pretty GD, gall darn, I'll say, inconsistent with the government. So you can't really count on these times. It gives you a general idea of how long it might take, but really it depends on what field office you deal with. Okay. Okay, so that was that question. So remember, please send questions. I know I had a lot of people, Instagram, a bunch of people just joined on. Please send me your questions. I've said many times, I'm not here for me, I'm here for you. I want to give meaningful information to people, so ask questions like right now we have one. Okay, I'm going through a divorce, and my U.S. citizen wife reported our marriage as fraud. I have 10-year green card. If I travel out of the States, will I be denied reentry? Unlikely. Unlikely that you're going to have it. Okay, so this is a big thing that's come up in the last number of years, but recently I've had a number of clients with this. Potential fraud. Spouses that sponsor you, and then there's regret later. Whatever happens, the relationship doesn't work, and then the pissed off spouse says, I'm turning you into immigration. I'm going to do whatever I can to destroy your life. It's not that easy. Okay. It's not that easy. It doesn't happen that quickly. So for the most part, somebody who has a 10-year green card, unless you're taken to deportation court, you're not losing your green card. Okay. If you've got your 10-year card, you're fine to travel. There's no issues. The only way that you're going to know that you have trouble is if you are approached by ICE and you're given a notice to come to the deportation hearing. That's when you know you have problems. And honestly, it doesn't happen all that often. It's got to be a smoking gun, a serious fraud. It's not like I'm a pissed off spouse. No, it doesn't happen like that. So don't worry about it. Don't sweat it. If you have more questions about this, you can always reach out directly to me. But you're really not going to have to worry about that. So the key is follow the legal process of the divorce. Don't skip out, and just follow through with the immigration stuff. Okay. And don't be too concerned about what your angry ex or soon to be ex is going to do. Okay. See, again, lot of new people joining. Please give me your questions. Okay. This stuff is very interesting to me. I love it. is very complicated, and I know there's a ton of questions. You might not want to ask. Oh, here's another one. Okay, U.S. citizen wife seized my daughter's passports and green card. That's really not cool. So basically, your wife is trying to extort you, right? You're protected by the government of the United States. So you can always report your wife to the police. I know, sounds horrible. But if your wife is breaking the law and is extorting you or whatever, you can report her to the police. You have a claim against anyone if they are committing crimes against you. And that would be an example of one. Okay. She claimed it belonged to her since yeah, I know. That's something that everyone says. Let me put it this way. You involve the police, you involve the court, all of a sudden you have your day in court and you have the ability to explain to the judge what's going on, and the judge is going to listen to everything and make a determination. So, yes, people say whatever they want. It doesn't mean anything. What's true is what matters. What you can prove is what matters. What people say doesn't necessarily matter at all. Okay, so just keep that in mind. Okay, my green card is over 30 years old. And 20 years ago, I had some fight. I got okay, how many travel overseas is that going to be a problem if I come back? Okay, so I'm still trying to figure out exactly, and you're welcome, Wandy, hola. Sorry if I mispronounced that. So, okay, again, this is Dean. My green card is over 30 years old, and 20 years ago had a fight. Okay. So traveling overseas, is that going to be a problem? Usually not. Again, the only time it's a problem traveling overseas is if you've committed some sort of immigration fraud. People fight, okay? DUIs, things like that, not a huge problem because people make mistakes. What you have to worry about is whether you have the legal right to re-enter the United States with your green card. If you haven't lost your green card, you're fine to come and go as you please because that is your right as a green card. The government has the duty and obligation to remove people's green cards if they think they need to, okay? So if they haven't done it, you don't have to sweat the small stuff. You can absolutely travel 20 years ago, 30 years ago, unless you lost your green card, you can travel. You don't have to worry, okay? You're welcome, Wandy. So again, that's why I say these things are game changers for people. All you have to do is be brave enough to ask that question, because so many of these questions, I've been doing this for, over a decade. I think close to 12 years now for immigration. I've been an attorney for over 20 years. I don't look like it, right? I look pretty good for my age, but these things, I've been doing this for years. I've been learning, I've been researching, I've been taking care of people's problems. These are questions that you need to be asking me because I had these questions. So now, Wandy is now going to be able to do the traveling without fear, right? So don't be prevented from moving on with your life because you don't want to ask the right question, or heaven forbid you pay an attorney to ask them the question. This is free because I care about my clients. But you know what? You can talk to other attorneys. It doesn't cost that much. If it changes your life, it's worth any price. That's what I tell people. Okay. So again, I'm on Instagram, YouTube, Facebook. I'm everywhere. Okay. So if you have questions, you see the number on the screen. Call the number 888-589-2228. It's a good number. Call with questions. Email. Reach out to me. I would love to help you with your process because I want people to be able to fully exercise their rights and to go home and see family. And you get the point, okay? So keep that in mind. This stuff is very important. All you have to do is ask. Let's see. What else do we have? I talked about the work permit and the CBP1 app. Again, stand by for the CBP1 stuff and the border stuff. It's a hot mess. It's an absolute hot mess. Who knows what's going to happen in November? And actually, it's next January that we really are tracking. But you guys can see there's some really, really bad things that are happening. So just stand by, right? Pay attention to what I'm saying and other people, because it's going to come to a head. Meaning things are changing day by day. So how do I get access to your old I-9 that an employer does not have anymore? So I-9 stuff, okay? So interesting question. There's a website. I don't have the link here right now, but you can go to the government website and you can look up these old things. If it's really old, it really doesn't matter. It matters your I-9 now, and I don't know what the nature of that question is and what the background is for it, but the government keeps track of records. You can always approach the government. You can ask them for those records because it's their obligation and duty to give them to you. So there's that. I want to apply for my son. He was born before I got my citizenship. Okay. Thank you, sir, for the question. Before I got citizenship. Okay. So citizenship, derivative citizenship. We're talking about children of naturalized citizens. Okay. The process is very delicate. And actually, I just recently, I think within the last week, did a video about it. So to have your child be eligible to automatically get citizenship, you actually have to show that they were under your caring custodianship before they turn 18. That's one key. They have to have been a legal permanent resident before you became a naturalized citizen, and you have to be a naturalized citizen. There's a few more technicalities behind it, but your child can be a U.S. citizen. They may already be a U.S. citizen. You just have to prove it, okay? So, so you might have to look into that a little bit. But again, their age, if they were above 18 when you became a naturalized citizen, totally different. Now they have to do it under their own power, which means they're a legal permanent resident, and they turn 18, they can move forward and request citizenship themselves, okay? He's overseas. Again, this gets a little bit technical. This is usually something that I do a consult for because there's a lot of very technical questions. If he's overseas, it doesn't necessarily matter. What matters is that you're his custodian and he has lived with you before you became a U.S. citizen, naturalized citizen. If he lived with you and he became a legal permanent resident before he turned 18, then he'll be able to do that. Here's the trick, though. If he's been out of the country, even as a U.S. citizen or a legal permanent resident for more than 6 months, you're going to have some explaining to do, okay? Because legal permanent residency says you have to remain in the United States as a legal resident. And if you're gone for more than 6 months at a time, you might have problems. And same thing for your child, okay? So it really depends on the history, the full history. But it is possible to show that history and to qualify for citizenship, okay? Let's see, what else do we have? Okay, tons of people joining. Still, questions are not totally crazy. You're not overwhelming me. You're underwhelming me. I love these questions. Some really good ones tonight, and I know the people who I answered are going to be able to move forward with some things. So hopefully it helped you. Hopefully you can move forward. We're getting close to the end of our half an hour. Every Monday I do this, and I might expand it because I do love it. Okay, I might expand it. We're thinking about doing one of these lives solamente en español. Right now we're doing mostly English because there's a lot of people who speak English. There's a lot of people who speak Spanish. So stand by because we're gonna be doing more of these every week. I already do it 8 o'clock on a Monday. Set your watch. Set Alexa to remind you, so you don't miss these, because these questions, they're free, man. Other people pay hundreds, thousands of dollars to get these answers. These are free. Okay. Okay, so, and where are we again? Yes, we're within 30 seconds of the end. So I will say again, next next week, tune in again and stand by for my announcement of other times that I'm going to be doing these lives in Espanol. And then I see Dina and Wandy. Yes. Next week, I can answer more of these questions. I don't have time to do it, and I'm sorry if we had even more time. Maybe I'll expand an hour in the future. But for today, hopefully you got some value out of what I put. Please don't feel shy to reach out to me directly, and stand by next week. It's 8:30. Have a very nice night, and we will see you all next Monday at 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. Thank you. Have a good night.